Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on the silent mechanics of influence, the hidden psychological levers and strategic traps that shape, well, pretty much everything, from a simple conversation all the way up to global conflict.
So let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of it. Are you really in control? I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. Because whether we like it or not, our choices are constantly being shaped by forces we barely even notice.
Okay, let's dive right in. It all begins with a concept that powers everything from cult recruiting to how social media keeps you hooked. And trust me, it's way more subtle than you'd ever guess.
You know, when we think of brainwashing, we picture some big, dramatic, Hollywood-style event. But the reality? It's actually built on a foundation of these tiny, seemingly insignificant agreements that slowly hardwire our brains to say yes without us even thinking about it.
Think of a stage hypnotist, right? Before they do the big finale and make someone fall unconscious, they first get them to follow maybe 50 tiny instructions. Look up, flip your hands over, spread your feet. Each one of those little yeses is a small step up, what's called a compliance wedge, making that final huge suggestion feel like an automatic logical next step.
Now that's just one piece of the puzzle. What's really fascinating is how this all fits into a larger framework for influence, something identified by behavior expert Chase Hughes. It's a model that explains how our entire reality can be shifted, right from under our feet.
So you've got this three-step cascade: perception, context, and permission. And this little sequence, it happens in our brains every single time we're influenced. It basically governs the boundaries of what we even believe is possible in any given moment.
And here's the crucial point, the thing most people miss. We focus all our energy on changing people's perceptions, but it's the context that secretly dictates what's permissible, often in the most shocking ways imaginable. In this story, this true story, illustrates the power of context perfectly. The hypnotist never commanded the officer to shoot. No way. He simply changed the context. He reframed the comedy show as a life-threatening situation, and that shift automatically gave the officer permission to do the unthinkable.
See, by shifting the frame of a situation, you can make a behavior that is normally completely forbidden seem like the only logical automatic choice. It's the invisible architecture of influence.
Okay, so let's bring this down from the stage and into our daily lives. Because these same powerful principles of framing and context, they're running in the background of our everyday conversations, determining whether we connect with people or just push them away.
Here's a simple one. According to research from Harvard, the moment you use the word but, it acts like a giant eraser for everything you just said. It signals conflict, it puts the other person on the defensive, but if you just replace it with and, the door for collaboration stays wide open.
But why argue at all? Instead of trying to direct someone to your conclusion, there's a much more effective method. You create an environment where the other person actually builds the idea themselves.
The news is an absolute master at this. A report might say, "A local woman has been reported missing." Then, in the very next sentence, neighbors saw her arguing with her boyfriend earlier in the day. They never state a conclusion. They just lay down two Legos. Your brain does all the work of connecting them.
And that is the absolute genius of it. Our minds are hardwired to defend our own conclusions with this incredible intensity. By letting someone else connect the dots, you make the idea theirs, and because of that, it becomes almost irresistible.
All right, let's scale this up. We've talked about one-on-one interactions. But what happens when you apply this to global strategy? Well, misunderstanding these silent mechanics of perception and context can trap entire nations in these awful, repeating cycles of conflict.
Military strategist Robert Pape calls this the escalation trap. It's when we get mesmerized by our tactical successes, a bomb hits a building, but we fail to see how that very success is leading to a massive strategic failure. Bombs don't just hit buildings, they fundamentally change the political landscape. And a common, really dangerous misconception that fuels this is the Jenga tower myth. Policymakers sometimes believe that a hostile regime is like a fragile tower. You just pull out one piece, the leader, and the whole thing collapses. But the reality is, they're more like these adaptive systems. When you remove one part, the system doesn't collapse, it adapts, and it often promotes someone even more aggressive to fill the gap.
We can see this exact trap playing out in the world right now. Each perceived tactical success, like bombing a facility or removing a leader, has actually resulted in a strategic failure, pushing the situation further down this predictable and very, very dangerous path.
In fact, Pape gives a staggering 75% probability that this trap is going to lead to the next logical stage, a limited ground deployment to search for missing nuclear material, a scenario with an extremely high risk of escalating into a long-term, unwinnable conflict.
So from the wiring of our own minds all the way up to the machinations on the global stage, we see these same silent mechanics at play over and over and over again. So, what does this all tell us?
Well, it leads us to a really crucial question about where true power and influence lie in the modern world. In this age of just overwhelming information and AI everywhere, what is the most critical human skill? It's probably not what you think.
The answer isn't about having more data or a better argument or a bigger bomb. It's about developing the ability to see, to understand, and to actually shape the unseen context that's operating just beneath the surface of every single interaction.
So whether you're navigating a high-stakes negotiation, a family argument, or just trying to make sense of the news, remember these principles are always active, always shaping the outcome before the conversation even begins.
You see, the game is won before it even begins. These silent mechanics are always at play. The only real question is, are you paying attention? Because by understanding the power of framing, context, and incremental agreement, you become aware of a game that most people don't even know they're playing. And once you can see it, you can begin to change the outcome.